Welcome to our show, Your Miracle Resource. Our show is designed for you to help you with resources, specifically in communication. Today's show is very unique, and we wanted you to share it with others. I want to pull up our slide to tell you a little bit about what we're doing today. Our communication in times of grief was designed for you. Our podcast listeners, as well as our WCTV listeners and online viewers, said to us, we know that you work with brands and marketing and you work with people on communicating to their success. But one of the things we really need as the holidays approach is how do you communicate in times of grief? So I want to put out there, and I'll share in our next slide, that I am not at any means a grief counselor. I don't do that for a living. I help people in communication. So this special edition of our show, we ask you to please share. And how did we create it? I asked for help. I went to people who've experienced it. So today, we're going to share people's experiences in an effort to help you. The parts that I will share on research are overall communication helpful tips. So let us begin. In our next slide, one of the things that you'll see is seeking out the right help, surrounding yourself with experts and people who will listen. My friend Martha wrote in that people will often not realize someone in grief is feeling alone and they're feeling misunderstood. And Martha, I want to thank you for that, because when my friends were murdered, I felt the world did not understand. Yes, I had the support of my sorority sisters, but I had been through something so tragic and I missed them so much. And I often felt alone in it and I felt misunderstood. So seeking out the right help matters. It's the right people at the right time in the right place to get you the help that you need and to communicate effectively. And in our next slide, I want to share with you why a big piece of I'm doing this show is the mistakes that I made during a time of grief. When my friends Dawn and Wendy were tragically taken from this earth, Dawn was my little sister in our sorority, and I did not know how to cope. I had much anger because of the murders. I didn't handle things correctly. So today's show is to help you not make the mistakes that I made. And in my next picture, I want to tell you how blessed I am, and I want you to find someone like this. I am blessed because in this picture, you see my sister Lynn. My sister Lynn is a chaplain and has taught Grief Share, but most importantly, she listens and she's present. I've known her my whole life. She is my big sister. She's always been someone who listens and is very present and someone who is there to help. Now, this was even before she became a chaplain. So my prayer for you is that you find someone like this and get the help that you need. In our next picture, I reached out to people and said, when people are communicating and they're in grief, one of the pieces for me that I wanted to share, besides the research that came in, I mentioned to you that my friends were murdered, and I put up this text to share with you that you owe no one anything. Now, what do I mean by that? There were many people who wanted to talk about the murders of my friends. They wanted details. I don't, and neither do you, owe anyone anything. If you don't want to share those details, you do not have to. I want to give you that right. That was something that I had to face in many times in my life because the case was so public. But please know, you talk about what you need to talk about. You do not owe anyone anything. And I also want you to know that I had to learn about my triggers, the things that would trigger me, and I had to manage those emotions. I still had to go through the day. At the time of my friend's murders, I was interviewing for jobs. I still had to go and do that, so I needed to know my triggers. My friend Nick wrote in, and I'm so thankful to him, these beautiful words: give grace to yourself and stay grounded in your true identity. In the next slide, we talk about preparing to communicate. Now, this is where I work in the field of communication when I work with teams and corporations and individuals. This applies in any communication, and I think it's especially important in times of grief. Read body language. If you have a friend who's grieving, read their body language. Look for what we call the micro expressions. One of my friends is an anchor, and people would watch her on TV and say, she's really doing well. But I watch her micro expressions. That's what happens after the smile. Those are those little expressions. Now, I would agree with people and say, yeah, she's doing fine, but I would also text her or call her to see how she was doing. Read micro expressions. And also, know when someone just needs a moment. We're very blessed here in Wadsworth to have Dan and Belinda Rasbert. They handled my father-in-law's funeral. They do a great job at their funeral home. And during that time, I wanted to be strong for my mother-in-law. I wanted to be strong for my husband and my sister-in-law. I wanted to play the role that they needed me to play. But by the end of the funeral, I was really feeling like I was going to burst out in tears. And I actually ran to the restroom and someone said, you know, Katherine, are you okay? And Dan Rasbert said, she just needs a moment. It was so smart. Please, when someone's grieving, give them a moment. They may need it. In the next slide, let's talk more about your words. I wrote this quote years ago, but I think it really matters in times of grief and communicating with people, especially as we get ready to go through the holidays. Your words can be fuel on a fire or water on a flame. Choose wisely. Now, as we move into the next form of communication during times of grief, I got some great feedback from my friend Michelle when she lost her son, and I just love she posts pictures and does beautiful tributes to him, and I'm so glad she wrote this. She said, with grief you learn as you go. And I thought that was really powerful, so give yourself that. You learn how to handle it as you go. My friend Tony wrote in, let traditions evolve. And Tony's correct. One of the things he talks about is sometimes you've always hosted something, but maybe someone else asked to host that event. And that's okay. Let the traditions evolve. And my dear friend Bob. Bob is also we share pain together. His daughter is Dawn, my little sister in sorority, who was murdered in 1986. And Bob and I have become friends, and his wife Joan, and I like that Bob wrote, talk about what happened if it helps you. Talk about what happened if it helps. And I thank Bob for that. And in our next part of communication, it's about communication over time. My friend Mary wrote in, and this is from Teeny Buddha, grief changes and time does not mean it lessens. And then Darlene wrote, and I thanked her for this, she was so brave to share, the loss could happen long ago, but it feels like it happened yesterday. Why is that? Grief is different for each person, and the way we experience it is different. So I thank them for sending in these. And more research came in our next slide, and that came from people's experiences. My friend Susie, she says, time may heal our wounds, but our hearts take longer. And I learned during grief and being with friends in grief that your value is not in fixing people, it's in listening to them. So in our next slide with research, I really love that Renee sent this. Renee lost her husband, and she's my friend. She does many, many posts about Paul, and it's just beautiful tribute. And she's so right when she says, listen to them and let them talk about their loved one. Sometimes we're afraid when someone is going through grief if they start talking about their loved one, but Renee says let them talk and listen to them. Mary Donahan wrote in, tell a story about the loved one. And I agree with Mary. Recently we've done that. We've shared so many stories, and that really helps the family and the people who are going through grief. And then my friend Rhonda, I love this. People want their loved one to be remembered. That's so important. People want their loved one to be remembered. Don't forget. Keep those holidays. Keep everyone writing in. Let's connect with each other. And in the next slide, more research came in on understanding someone who is grieving. Lauren, who was my student, who is much wiser than her instructor, wrote this. It is not okay to tell someone how they should feel. And I want to share that from my own pain as well. There were times that people felt after a loss, you know, maybe I should move forward, maybe I didn't want to talk about it, maybe I wanted to go to an event, or I should go to an event, I should be happy and go to an event. And I agree with Lauren. I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't ready yet. And I needed to give myself that permission. So thank you, Lauren. And Tammy, my friend, experienced a lot of grief at the same time I did. And I love what she wrote. She says, it is okay if they want to be alone. It is okay to not be okay. And I think in a world where we often feel we have to be positive and cheer people up, and I do a lot of motivational speaking, but I can tell you, I agree with Tammy. It's okay if people want to be alone. And it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a time of grief. Let's go to the next research in communication. And we talk about this, communicating to someone who is grieving. Give them the right to grieve. My friend Arlene wrote this, and she wrote, listen, do not cheer them up. Give them the right to grieve and listen. And Martina, I want to thank you for these words. This is something that I really had to think about. And Martina, I'm going to learn from this. Do not avoid because you don't know what to say. Sometimes we avoid people in grief because we don't know what to say. So Martina, thanks for sharing that. And in the next set of communication, I want to share a quote that I wrote. Let your pain become a campaign that leads you in helping others. That's what I had to do. I had so much anger and so much sorrow about the horrific death of my friends. I needed to do something. And a lot of us, through tribute, need to create campaigns. So let's take a look at what came in the next set of research. Finding your faith. My friend John wrote, prayer is a powerful tool in the healing process. For me, finding my faith helped me seek help from my anger. And Marianne, who is Dawn, who is my little sister, who was horrifically taken from this earth in 1986. I wanted to console Marianne and be there for her. She was Dawn's mom, but really, Marianne modeled her faith to me. She didn't push her faith on me, she modeled her faith to me. And in the next slide, it was something that my husband actually created that I love. Now, this is from Romans, but this is how I felt. My suffering, it led to my patience and my character built, and then I found hope. You see, when my friends were murdered, I didn't have any hope. I didn't think we would ever be happy again. This was a time that I wasn't using what you see on screen, suffering to patience to character to hope. And in the next part of research, what I want to share is what people told me helped them the most, living in tribute. Thinking about what my loved ones would have wanted. I realized later Dawn and Wendy did not want me to be sad every day. They wanted me to go live my life and use my voice. My friend Marjorie wrote in that one of the best tributes, and I love what she wrote, she said, share those memories, continue to share those memories. And I changed my mindset about the grief of my friends. Yes, I grieve and I miss them, and there's days that I cry. But I want you to know, I do what Marjorie says, and I live on those memories, those fun memories that make you laugh, and I enjoy their life and what I learned from their life, not the details of their death. But for each person, grief is different. And in our next section, I want to talk more about those creative tributes. My friend Dawn wrote in, talk to your loved one. And I know this is going to sound kind of freaky, but I bought an ATS car in last year. And they said, hey, you need a name for your car that starts with an A. So my father's real name was Andre. So when I get in my car, I say, Andre, let's go, and I just kind of talk. And even in the deep snow, when we worry about driving and we're scared, I'm like, come on, Andre, we can make it. And it just kind of reminds me that my dad is with me, the lessons that he taught me. So Dawn, I want to thank you for that. Talk to your loved one. And from my friend Leanne, this is so beautiful. They do a tribute for their mom where they write memories on a balloon, and on her birthday, they launch the balloons. It's so cool. What a beautiful tribute. And for me, that So Shine Today that you see on screen, that's from my friend Dawn. My friend Dawn, my little sister in sorority, when I was involved in activities, she'd always write me a note, good luck, you're gonna do great. And at the end, it was So Shine Today. It always ended with So Shine Today. So I often write that to people and share that with people. And in the next creative tributes, I want you to know, I needed to write a book to share about my friend's life. I was tired of everyone talking about their deaths. I wanted them to be remembered. Kind of like what Rhonda said when we went through the research and we said, I wanted my loved ones to be remembered. I wanted to pay them tribute. Please note, you don't need to write a book. But for you, a tribute might look something like this. And on our next slide, we got great feedback from my friend Mary. Her mom loved yellow roses, and a beautiful tribute to her mom is the yellow roses that she places and has in her life. It reminds her of her mom. It's a beautiful communication with action. My mentor, Dr. Dudley Turner, wrote this in. I think it's so wise. We worry about people who are going through grief, and we may say, hey, can I pick up food for you? But what Dr. Turner says is, Be very specific and fill needs in ways that you can help them. So his example was, if you say to someone grieving, I'm headed to the grocery store, do you need anything? That way the person doesn't feel like a burden. And I really love that Dr. Turner wrote, be specific in sharing ways in which you can help. And this from my friend Joy. This I have used, Joy, so thank you so much for sending this in. Write happy memories when you feel intense grief. I know the holidays are coming, and that's why we did this special edition show. I know that they are going to be difficult days for you. You may handle them in different ways, but I hope that you try this from Joy and her personal experience. In those moments of intense grief, write down those happy memories. And in the next set of research, I want you to know what has helped me. My parents died within 7 months of each other. They were my sun and they were my moon. For me, seeing the sun every day reminds me of my dad, and it helps me get through the day. And my mom was my moon, and that moon is so beautiful when you see it. You don't see it every day, but for me, it just helps me to know that. It's a physical tribute to them for me to see the sun and the moon. Now, in our next set of research, one of the pieces is resources. And Judith wrote in, she's on the board of Cornerstone of Hope. She wrote in about that as a resource, and I want to share with you. One of my clients, we had a tragedy happen, and the client said, let's call Cornerstone of Hope. They were wonderful. They came in and helped us. They were incredible. My friend Laura wrote in about the Western Reserve Grief Services. How amazing. We always know about hospice, but Western Reserve Grief Services. Reach out, get the help that you need. And of course, griefshare.org, which my husband and I attended after the death of my father-in-law. It was really amazing for us. And I want to share a special angel that came to me, and we've worked together a lot. In the next set of slides, it's my friend Michelle. Michelle is a widow who runs Joy Returns. She is international. There are more countries that use her and follow her than there aren't. So I'm not going to say where she is, because I'm just going to say she's everywhere. Now, Michelle with Joy Returns is a blogger, she's a writer, and she helps so much. Her tips are incredible. And I want you guys to know that as you look at the help that you need in your life, I feel that Michelle has reached out and helped people internationally because that is her tribute. And her tribute is incredible. Now, for our show today, as we've gone through all of these communication resources, and we've had people, and I want to thank everybody who wrote me back on Facebook and gave great, great research. To me, one of the best things is the tribute. And I want to share something with you. I actually have it on. The Wright family, after the loss of my friend Joy this past November, gave us this faith, hope, and love bracelet. And you know, it just makes me feel like Joy is with me. And this was the color that she wore. She looked amazing, this color. I don't call it salmon or orange. It's Joy's color because she rocked it. She was truly amazing. She was a fierce, fierce educator to eliminate toxins in our lives. And I think about her every day and I miss her. And when I wear this, it really keeps her close to me. So all of these creative tributes mean so very much. And all of you who wrote into us to help us, thank you very, very much for helping us with this show. As you can tell by my voice, not easy to talk about communication in times of grief. But again, as a communication concierge helping you with all forms of grief, I am not a grief expert. I am not someone who does this for a living, but I wanted to share some personal experiences. I hope that you'll share this show with others who need it. And I want you to know, my angel Michelle, who wrote in everything for Joy Returns, we're going to post on our Facebook page all of her information and all of her resources. And I want you to know that she is truly incredible, and I hope that you'll follow her blog, and that is Joy Returns. Again, on our Facebook page, Miracle Resources and Katherine Miracle, I'm going to go ahead and put all of Joy's information up so that way you can see it. and it's incredible. So I want to thank everyone who helped, especially my friend Michelle. Please go to our Facebook page and look at the JPEGs that she created. She created so many great resources for you. I want to thank all of you, and I want to wish you an incredible holiday season. Thank you from our show, Your Miracle Resource, and have a great day.